Hi, I'm Bernice Fernandez. I'm sorry.
It's all right, girl. It's all right.
I'm a third year at the University of Chicago, and I'm going to be asking Rosa here some questions.
Yeah.
Rosa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks. My name is Rosa Yadira Ortiz. I am one of the assistant directors in the Office of Multicultural Student Affairs at the University of Chicago. Additionally, I serve as board president of Amigas Latinas Chicago, which serves and advocates for the queer Latina community in Chicago.
Cool. So I have some questions here about coming out.
Okay.
And one of the really, really big questions that I feel like a lot of people have is, what does it mean to come out?
I think coming out, and I can't say what it means to come out for everybody, but for me, coming out means kind of putting your identities, your beliefs out there. Oftentimes it means that those identities and beliefs will be critiqued. They might be ridiculed. They might also be celebrated. But I think it's about saying this is who I am. I think this is also about saying this is how complex I am, and that's beautiful. And this is also saying what I stand for and believe in.
Okay. So do you think that everyone needs to come out? I mean, you definitely said that it's something that is important.
Mm-hmm.
But again, does everyone need to come out?
I think that's a good question. I think that's a hard question to answer, and I don't think there's a definitive answer for that. I think that for me, it's important to come out. I was sharing with a friend that I don't know where the closet is at. I mean, I'm so far removed from that if I even wanted to go back in the closet, I wouldn't even know where to find it. I'm such a professional gay. I work. I serve on the board of an organization that's queer. I work in the Office of Multicultural Student Affairs that also houses the Office of LGBTQ Student Life and do lots of queer things together. But that's also really important that I come out as a godmother, and I come out as a recovering Catholic, and I come out as believing my family as the most important part of my life. And so I think that for me is very important. I also know that I am financially independent. I have my own home, and I don't have risks that might be associated to coming out as a queer person. And so I have those privileges that other people might not have. I've always come out at work, so once I came to the University of Chicago, people knew I was queer, and so there was never a question of coming out in that way. But I think there's lots of risks. Coming out as undocumented is a huge risk, and so I think there are time and places that are available, but I also know there's lots of risks to coming out, and so I think it's important for us to be really cognizant of allowing people their time and their space, and when they're comfortable to come out.
Okay. So what is the difference between coming out and being outed? Because I know that, like, at least for me, there's been times when I've just been saying something like, oh, I have a crush on this girl, or like, I like this boy. People are just like, wait, what, you're queer?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, would that be coming out, or would that be being outed? What do you think?
Well, I don't know. What do you think?
I really don't know, but, like, my understanding of coming out is something that it's like, you stand there in front of someone and you give them, like, you tell them your story, and like it's a story that you're telling to another person, whereas being outed is just, I feel like it's just something that happens. But there's also something about being outed that is like a little impersonal, so it's not something you're doing yourself. I don't know, my understanding of coming out and being outed are still a little fuzzy.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's about your story, you telling your story whenever you want to tell your story. And so I think when somebody is, to put it in general context, bogus enough to say, are you queer? That's not your story. That's not their story to tell. That's your story to tell whenever you feel comfortable telling. And so I really do believe in the power of one's own story to share whenever that's the time and place that's appropriate. I'm not gonna go around everywhere and say, I'm a big old queer and I love it. I do love it. I am a big old queer and I love every second of it. But there's a time and place for that. You know, I will say I will go around and tell everybody that I have a 3-year-old niece who I love dearly. And I do that every chance I can. But again, I think it's about our story when it's our time to share that.
Okay. Do you think that coming out is a different experience for a person of color as opposed to someone who is not a person of color?
That's a good question. And, you know, I think oftentimes, so with Amigas Latinas, oftentimes people ask us, well, you know, what is it like to come out in the Latina community? You know, all the myths around machismo and patriarchy and sexism. And I think both of my grandparents know I'm queer. My grandfather said, you know, well, at least you won't get pregnant right away. That was his first answer. And then my grandma says, I love you, you're my granddaughter, you know, warm fuzzy. And so I think that there are differences, right? We understand that that people face multiple forms of discrimination. One of them includes racism, one of them includes sexism, and one of them includes homophobia. And I participate in all those things, unfortunately, right, because I am a queer woman of color. So I think there are some challenges that are not faced by other communities because of systems of oppression that are currently in place. I think if now, I think in my community of friends, I don't think there's a big difference. I mean, there's lots of queer people of color, there's lots of queer people, and there's lots of straight allies. And so I think there is no difference because we all respect one another. But I think it would be, you know, too simple to say there aren't any challenges. But I think I do find it very insulting when people automatically assume that it's very difficult for us Latinos to come out, because that's for me, a very ignorant comment, a comment that's not rooted in the loving tradition that are our families. I think my mom always said, I don't understand it. I'm from Mexico City. Then I never knew anybody like that, but I love you. And that is a very cultural thing for my family. That might not mean that that's the same cultural tradition as another Latina woman, but for my family that was, and it was rooted in a cultural tradition.
So, do you think there are other resources available other than like a family for a person of color out there?
I think, so my favorite author, Shiri Moraga, you should look her up. I love her. And she always, one of my favorite quotes is that we create our own families from scratch if we have to. And I firmly believe that. My family, I have two families. One of them is my biological family. My mom, my sister, my niece. Love them all dearly. They're all named Rosas besides my niece. And then I have my chosen family, and those are my friends, those are my supporters, they're my cheerleaders, and I think both of them are equally as important. I celebrate birthdays, I celebrate hardships, I celebrate accomplishments with both of them. And so I think it's about creating those families that we find allyship and we find support with. And that's crucial. That's crucial to one's mental health, and that's crucial to one's survival. And so I think we need to create those and find strength in them and nurture those as well.
Do you feel that those two families that you have mix a lot?
You know, some of my friends might say they don't want that to mix because my family is a handful. But I think they do. I mean, they're my family. All of them are my family. You know, the people I share a home with are my family. The people that I celebrate birthdays are my family. And so, for example, for our Amigas Gala, I had some of my chosen family working that event because, you know, you work, and because I work, and we all work together. And then my family came and they were able to meet one another and kind of celebrate, and they already knew so much information about me, so they were able to gang up on me together. And so I think it's beautiful to have those places come together. And I think sometimes you need to go to your friends and say, my mom is driving me insane, and simultaneously go to my family and say, some of my friends are driving me insane, what do I do? But they're both such a source of support and love.
Okay. So going back to the question of coming out, how many times have you come out? Are you comfortable answering that question?
Oh God, how many times have I come out? I don't know. I think I come out a lot. But I think I always imagine that people know I'm gay or queer, identify as queer. And so when people say, oh, I didn't know, I'm shocked. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm a big old gay and I love it so much. My bio says I'm queer, like the work that I do speaks that I'm queer. And so it's funny when I have to say that and people are kind of shocked. But I also come out as an immigrant. I think people often forget that I came here from Mexico. I went back to Mexico every year throughout high school, and I went there for the summers. Or that I am a Spanish-speaking person and I grew up Spanish-speaking. So oftentimes those sayings, I always make a joke with friends of mine. There's a hop, skip, and a jump. I have to remember how to say that because that's not what I grew up with. I say las manos en la masa. I don't know how to say that in English. It's in Spanish. That's how I say it. And so I think those are things that I have to come out as, you know. And so I think that's really funny because I think I'm already so out in so many different ways, but I have that luxury, and I'm really happy to have that luxury. And I think it's very important that I'm out. I think I was listening to a piece on NPR after all these really devastating suicides, and they talked about how there was such a small community of offices, like the Office of LGBTQ Student Life at U of C, and I was just kind of, it was so foreign to me because I grew up in Chicago, and so it was such a important component. But I remember meeting my first queer Latina when I was an undergraduate, and I'm like, wow, you're a queer Latina. Like I too can be a queer Latina, because I didn't know that was possible. And so I know it's important to come out and to be courageous and to say that it is okay and it is beautiful to be queer, to be a person of color, and I think we should not be ashamed of that. And when you can do that, I think it's even better. Sometimes you can't, but when you can, I think that's fantastic.
So if you had to give one piece of advice for someone who is coming out, what would it be?
Oh, sweet Jesus. Wow, that's a really hard question. I had to give one piece of advice. I would say just find your own chosen family, and that can be your biological family, that can be the friends you create. But I think that it gets better now. It gets better with your family. It gets better with people who love you, who love all of you, right? And who love all the multiple layers, all the messiness, because I think we're messy people, and that's fine. Sometimes I can't always answer the phone. Sometimes I don't want to answer the phone. Doesn't mean my friends should like hate me from now on. But I think it's finding people who support you and celebrate you in the way that you are, and it's complicated, loving glory. And so I think that's really important. I think that's helped me get through lots of really difficult times, and lots of also beautiful times that I want to celebrate with people that I care for.
Yep. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
This was wonderful.
Yes, I agree.